building a bunch of businesses over the years, and in coaching and just sort of being around entrepreneurs and small business owners, I've run into so many that struggle with this delegation issue. Either folks are too scared to delegate, they don't do it, and they do all the work themselves. Or, like you said, they'll delegate, they'll give the work to somebody, but then they'll micromanage them and they'll bother the crap out of them and annoy them until they lose them, frankly. To me, the stakes are very high. Not only is it much, much harder to build a scalable business if you can't delegate, but you never get that time back, Anthony.
Joining us now on Open Book is Dave Kerpen. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a New York Times best-selling author. The latest book is Get Over Yourself, How to Lead and Delegate Effectively for More Time, More Freedom, and More Success. Well, who doesn't want those three things? But David, first of all, congratulations on the new book. You know I'm a big fan of yours. And I just want to tell viewers and listeners that I was in a local bookshop that is now closed buying one of your books. Just so we're clear, you were also in the bookshop and you came over and introduced yourself. And so without me knowing you were in the bookshop, I was buying one of your books, which was a great networking book, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So first of all, congratulations on this. Give us a little bit of an update. We're both Port Washington natives out on Long Island. Obviously, I think it's the best place in the world. Maybe you think that. I don't know. My mother's been living there for 87 years. Talk to me. Talk to me about your life. Talk to me about where you are now. Then we'll get into the book.
Yeah, of course. That was a great moment, Anthony, because, as an author, I've only had it, I think, 3 times where I saw somebody buying or reading my book totally out in the wild, and it's really humbling and cool. And of course, I recognized you as well, and so that was a really cool meeting. Dolphin Bookshop no longer in business, and so many independent bookstores, unfortunately, no longer in business. But Port Washington has been a great home to us. We've lived here now 15 years. And raising our kids here, and just a great place to live.
Should you and I go into the book business? Should we open up a local bookstore in Port Washington?
I think I'm sad about the book business because this is my 5th book, and I'm a fan of books and authors and the work that they do. And unfortunately, as you know, Amazon has changed the book business forever, and it's pretty hard these days to build a book business, unfortunately.
Right. So the local bookstore in Port Washington, which was there for 76 years, is now closed, and there's no chance to revitalize it, right? That's just a bygone era. Is that fair to say?
I think it is fair to say, there's a few independent bookstores that are still hanging in there that do experiential marketing. I think it's possible, but it's difficult. It's just a reality that the online marketing world and Amazon mostly has changed the way we purchase most things, and certainly changed the way we purchase books. So, but I keep doing the book thing, and I know you're doing the book thing, which is very exciting.
Well, I'm a bookworm. So too bad. I'm going to be a bookworm until I croak, and that's it. So let's talk about you. Okay. So how do you lead and delegate effectively? I don't know anybody that does it, by the way. So if you know somebody that does it, could you please introduce them to me and then help me out? Because I'm not good at it personally. I try to get good at it, but then I'm a little bit of a control freak. So talk to me.
Yeah, well, the reason I wrote this book is that in building a bunch of businesses over the years, and in coaching and just sort of being around entrepreneurs and small business owners, I've run into so many that struggle with this delegation issue, and either folks are too scared to delegate and they don't do it, and they do all the work themselves, or like you said, they'll delegate, they'll give the work to somebody, but then they'll micromanage them and they'll bother the crap out of them and annoy them until they lose them, frankly. And to me, the stakes are very high. Not only is it much harder to build a scalable business if you can't delegate, but you never get that time back, Anthony. And I've had a number of people come to me and say, I did this work building this business and I missed my kids growing up, and I missed that time. And as I did the research for the book, I looked at deathbed research, and the percentage of people that say on their deathbed they wish they had worked more is basically zero. It's negligible. The percentage of people that say on their deathbed they wish they had more time with their family, more time with their close friends, more time pursuing their passions, more time traveling, it's huge. And you just don't get that time back. So to me, delegation is the key to unlocking that time, that freedom. I pick up my son every day off the school bus at 3 o'clock, and I will never get that time back with him. If I weren't able to delegate work, I wouldn't be able to have that time. And so I wrote this book to help entrepreneurs and small business owners
Good.
manage this.
Delegate something. I do a lot of public speeches. I can't delegate that. I'm running a fund. That's very hard to delegate because, I got my own money in the fund. And so I'm worried about the money and also worried about the client's money. I'm pushing back on you. Okay. You know why I'm pushing back on you? Because I got a lot of very smart people that listen to this podcast. Thank God. You're a very smart person. I need an apple to fall from the sky and smash me on the side of the head, Kirpin. So tell me what that is. Give me the revelation that's going to make me more confident in delegation, and tell me what I should be doing, and tell me what people do wrong, and tell me what I should be doing.
Well, there's two things that hold people back, right? So it's not everyone knows how to delegate and the systems and tools that are out there. There's hundreds of different systems and tools. What holds people back is two things: fear and distrust. So you are afraid that if you gave the work of managing your fund to somebody else, they would F it up. They would screw it up. They would lose your money. They would lose your investors' money. So how can you find somebody that you can trust and alleviate some of those fears? It takes time, of course. And the way I do it is I start with small tasks and I give people bigger and bigger and bigger tasks, and they earn my trust over time. And eventually I can hand that over to them. And yeah, sometimes people make mistakes, but guess what? Sometimes we make mistakes too. Are you the only person in the world that can manage your fund, Anthony?
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. I've spent over half my life on Wall Street, so I know how important it is to talk in numbers. And let's face it, traditional therapy can add up fast. It can feel like a big investment, but it's also one of the most important ones you'll ever make. For me, therapy has been a game changer. Having someone to talk to, work through challenges with, and gain perspective from, it's invaluable. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, helping you save on both cost and time. Two things we all wish we had more of. Like most of us, I live a busy lifestyle, but with BetterHelp, you can join a session with just a click anytime, anywhere. No commute, no waiting room, just professional support when you need it. Your well-being is worth it. Visit BetterHelp.com/openbook today to get 10% off your first month.
All right, let me ask you this. Does Warren Buffett delegate the fund management to people?
Of course. He doesn't do all of the work himself. He has lots of work, lots of folks that are doing, analysts that are doing work. He might be making the final call. And yeah, you can make the final call on things. But are there ways that you could outsource some of the decision making, some of the research, some of the analysis to other folks? I mean, I think, at the risk of challenging you right back, because I know I know your style. I know you like to be told.
This is why we're here.
I think that I might think that I am the best person in the world to do anything is completely arrogant and completely narcissistic. There's no way on earth that I am the best person in the world to even write this book, to manage my companies, to do anything, to do marketing, to do sales. There's definitely lots and lots of people that are better than I am. Now, I might not have access to all those people all the time, but it's my goal to find better, smarter, more talented people than I am to do all of that work. And surely, in your heart, there are some people out there that could do this work as well as, if not better than you.
You're making a brilliant case. This is why I'm trying to provoke you. Okay, I want people listening. I want them to go out and buy your book. And you're making a good case. Let's talk about the work from home dynamic. And we'll talk about the office dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I'm a 60-year-old traditionalist. I like people being in the office. Okay, younger people like working from home now. They feel like they can get more done. I'm late joining this podcast because I live in Manhasset now, which is about 4 miles from where you live.
Our rival.
And it took me 1 hour and 46 minutes to get here this morning because there was a little bit of rain. And for viewers and listeners, that's 18 and a half miles from my house to my office, 1 hour and 45 minutes in traffic to get here. Should I just stay at home and do these podcasts from home? I've got the same computer set up. I've got the same system, arguably a better microphone. I don't know. What should I do?
Yeah, I would have called myself a traditionalist in that way up until maybe 5-6 years ago, but I'll never look back. The time I save and the productivity that I generate, and most important, the time that I now have with my family that I wouldn't have had otherwise. That is way, way, way more valuable than the so-called benefits of being face-to-face in the office. And I think, yes, is it more challenging to build culture on Zoom? Of course. Is it more challenging to do the work from home thing? Of course. But do my people appreciate the freedom and autonomy to do the work at their discretion, at their leisure, the way they want to do it? They do. And I think the old system, again, to challenge you, the old system of 9 to 5, be in the office, show your face, first one to get in the office, last one to leave. I don't see the benefits anymore versus giving folks the flexibility and the autonomy to do the best job they can in the time that works best for them. Lots of people work well early in the morning. Lots of people work well super late at night. I do not care at all how you get the job done or when you get the job done. I care that you get the job done. I give my team the objectives, the finish line, what the finish line looks like, success. And I say, how you get there. There was that woman that ran that cheated on the New York Marathon years ago. She took the subway, right? And people didn't realize or whatever. She crossed the finish line having taken the subway. And that's cheating, of course. That doesn't work. But from my perspective, I don't care if you take the subway or you run the 26 miles. If you get to the finish line, great. Are there exceptions to that in finance? Do you have to be available during business hours, during trading hours? Of course, there are exceptions to every rule. But in the bottom line is, if I give people the freedom and autonomy to do the work wherever they want, whenever they want, however they want, but they can still crush it, hit those goals, exceed those goals, why do I care?
Okay. I love you, by the way. I mean, in like a bro love kind of a way, because you're a very unique guy. And how do you stay positive all the time? Like, you are a positivity force of nature. So,
positivity. Thank you. Positivity is there's real science behind it. I encountered this guru a few years ago. His name is Shirzad Shamin. He's a professor at Stanford, and he has written a book called Positive Intelligence. You should definitely have him on. He writes about the actual the impact of positivity on our lives and on our productivity and efficiency. There is a real science to productivity. So to positivity. So am I in a crappy mood sometimes? Of course. Am I bummed about various things? Of course. But I know that positivity will impact my mood, my ability to get things done, and it will impact others. There's a lot of people that go around through life thinking, if I make a lot of money, then I will be happy, and then I can be grateful. And my perspective is the opposite. If I channel gratitude all the time, whenever possible, and we do gratitude practices every day at dinner, my whole family goes around the table, we're all grateful. I write gratitude lists. I go to bed thinking about 5 things I'm grateful for every single night. If I channel gratitude, that will actually create happiness in me, and the happiness will make me more productive, which in the long run will make me lots of money. That's not why I do it, of course, but I really truly believe in the power of positivity. And the way I stay positive, to answer your question, is 2 things: gratitude and acts of kindness. Those are 2 things that take us out of our own mishigas, to use a little. I'm sure from Port Washington, even though you grew up Italian, you know the word mishigas. We're all full of anxiety, and we get bummed about the stupidest things. You're in a crappy mood right now because it took you an hour and 45 minutes to get here, and that's a pain in the ass. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, that hour and 45 minutes compared to the grand scheme of the amazing gifts that you have, the family that you have, the wealth that you've achieved, the people you've been able to meet and develop relationships with through the years, that's amazing. And so when I have a crappy day, like an hour and 45-minute commute, which doesn't happen very often because I'm working from home, but when I do that, I go to acts of kindness and gratitude, and it completely transforms my mood. It's real stuff.
I'm playing the foil here because if I was too positive, it would just be too positive of a thing. And I've got a lot of Brits that listen to this shit, and they like when I take the piss out of people.
The Brits are tough. The Brits are not.
I don't want to be overly positive, but by the way, don't cry for me because I got a hookup in the back of the car with my my Amazon Fire. I was watching Shogun in the back of the car on FX episode 7, which was quite a good episode. So you don't have to cry for me. I like coming into the city, and I like the jungle, and I like the fight. But what I don't like is when people are mean to other people. That I don't like. I don't like when someone goes after my receptionist because they think they have more power than my receptionist, right? I don't like that. And one of the messages consistent in all of your books is that you can get a lot done and still be cool and still be nice. So take us through that, David. Take us through, wake people up, let people know that killing people with kindness is the better recipe.
Kindness matters. It really does, and it matters in business. It matters most important in life. It matters in sales. I once cracked really early on in my career. I was trying to crack I was in sales for Disney, and I was trying to crack the Dunkin' Donuts account. Obviously, a huge account at the time, and the marketing rep was never around, always too busy, etc. Well, I would go and visit and get to know the receptionist. Her name was Betty Biggs. God rest her soul. I don't believe she could be possibly with us still because this is a while back. But I became BFF with Betty Biggs, Anthony. I would say I would show up with coffee and donuts, but working at Dunkin' Donuts, she already had it. But I would show up, with little gifts and just to stop by and say hello. I got to know her really well. So one day I get a phone call. It's Betty Biggs. She's calling me, and I said, "What's going on, Betty Biggs?" She goes, "Shannon, the marketing rep. Shannon just got into the office. She's free right now. You need to call her right this minute." I said, "Thank you so much." Picked up the phone, called Shannon, landed that Dunkin' Donuts account, and it really set off wonderful things in my career. Now, had I not gone the extra mile to be kind, not only to be kind to, but really to develop a relationship with, a real friendship with the receptionist, that never would have happened. Never would have unlocked the Dunkin' Donuts account. Who knows what other path I might have gone on. For me, every interaction matters. How grateful am I that I happened to see you in the bookstore and see you buying my book and use that opportunity to say hello and invite you over for dinner, and we built a relationship. If life is too short not to choose kindness at every opportunity is the way I see it.
It's important, but I just wanted to make sure I got that message out there because that's a big Kirpin message. It's sort of the Kirpin kindness methodology. Let's talk about ego for a second, okay? The ego is healthy in some ways, right? It gives us strength and identity and purpose, and we have to believe in ourselves, of course, to do the things that we want to do to achieve our dreams. But it can also get in the way, right? It can also be a blockage for us, right? It's certainly a blockage when you delegate. You write about this in the book. You talk about how your ego can get in the way of delegation. So tell us about the assets and liabilities of an ego.
Yeah, so the title "Get Over Yourself" is really twofold, right? Because we need to literally get over ourselves doing the work in order to delegate. But to your point, we need to get over ourselves in terms of our ego. When I said earlier to you, how could you possibly be the best person on the planet to do something? That's ego. We think. Because we live with ourselves. And look, ego is natural. To your point, there's some positive benefits, certainly of confidence. But the reality is we're all relatively similar human beings, got just about 99.999% of the same DNA. And yeah, some people might be smarter than other people in certain things, and some people might have certain talents. Absolutely. but we're all basically the same. And so this idea of thinking that we're the best thing at best and at anything, that cockiness, that arrogance, it just doesn't suit us well. So, get over yourself is literally get over yourself to delegate to others. But for me, it's, it's a good reminder. I gotta check my ego at the door too. And luckily I married up. I think we both married up. I certainly married up 3, 4, 5 levels. So I get to, sort of pinch myself all the time and remind myself how lucky I am.
Well, I've met your wife. You definitely married up. But I mean, my wife is not my better half. She's like my better 9/10, and I'm actually being generous to me. It's totally fine. The book I was purchasing was The Art of People. You remember writing that book?
Yes, sir. 11 simple people skills that will get you everything you want. And the interesting thing is you bought that right before you went to the White House, but I think you bought it for your son, if I recall.
I read it first, but I bought it for him because I thought that book, and I don't know if you remember the legendary Harvey Mackay. Okay, he wrote a book called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. I thought your book and his book were probably the two best books I've ever read on networking. So tell us a little bit about The Art of People.
Yeah, so, look, networking, similar to what I said about kindness, I think that for me, at least, relationships are all we have. And every opportunity, every person that we meet is an opportunity to learn and to build our network. We never know. There's folks that are very particular about who they'll accept a connection with on LinkedIn. They have to really have met them in person and have a business relationship with them, yada, yada, yada. For me, it's like, well, the more people I connect with, the better, because you just never know when paths will cross. And so now my favorite thing to do is to connect other people with each other, because then I can, create all kinds of synergies, and people remember who connected them. There's so much more opportunity in relationships than we might realize. And when we think less about what they can do for us and more about what we can do for them, in the long run, that absolutely comes back to us.
So there's a word that people use all the time called charisma. What does that word mean to you? And is charisma something you can teach somebody, or is that something they're born with?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think charisma is tough to teach. I think, the reality is introverted people have a more difficult time in building relationships, in networking, et cetera. The internet's been good. The internet evens the score to a great extent with respect to the charisma situation. There's no charisma, doesn't really come through in a Instagram DM or in an email. So that gives folks an opportunity to sort of level the playing field. But to me, charisma is this sort of energy and charm that is hard to teach, unfortunately. And all I can say with respect to my own ability to have hopefully some charisma, so I've been told, is the way I look at it is genuine interest and curiosity in every conversation, in every opportunity, in every person. And I truly am genuinely curious, whether it's Betty Biggs, the receptionist, or Anthony, the security guard at my kid's school, then when I do kid drop off in the morning, or the CEO of 1-800-Flowers.com, Jim McCann, a friend of ours and a great mentor to me. Every person I meet is somebody that I genuinely want to better understand and learn from. Yeah.
I took Jim with me to the Met home opener. I just sent them the link for the suicide hotline for the Mets. Okay, it's absolutely brutal. But the word, when you look it up, it has a derivation from ancient Greece, and the charismatic, or the charism is it means to be magnetic, and so the word charm comes from this. When someone's charming, it means they attract people to them. Is that what it means to you?
Yeah, it's an energy, it's a curiosity, I think magnetism is a good way to describe it, but it's a very hard quality to really kind of nail down. I think, to your point earlier, it's a very hard quality to teach, unfortunately. I think you can teach. I think what I try to teach my kids again, is that genuine curiosity and interest in other people. And I think that does come through, and people appreciate it. I know I wrote this in Art of People. It is much better to be interested than to be interesting. We think we have to be interesting. We have to tell these great stories. We have to like be the center of attention. And sure, it's great to be the center of attention, but the person that is genuinely interested in others is the one that's going to be remembered the longest.
So, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Seminal book, right, on awareness?
Wonderful, wonderful book. And one of the highlights of my career was when I wrote Art of People. Adam Grant, who's just an absolute brilliant author, my favorite author, wrote. He did an endorsement for me and called The Art of People a sort of a more modern version of How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is it's a classic book. Wonderful.
Oh, well, I'm bringing it up because I do think that The Art of People is an undersold book. By the way, it was a bestseller, but I do think people should go out there and buy that as well.
Well, thank you. By the way, it's done very, very well in Europe. So for the Brits listening, Europe and the Netherlands, it continues to sell off the charts. I don't know. Yeah, to your point, it stopped selling in the U.S., but it's fine.
You're too happy for the British, okay? They have shitty weather over there, okay? You're just too happy for them, okay? You need to tone it down a little bit, Kirpin, all right? All right, but no, in all seriousness, I love your work. I think the message in your work, and I think the message about delegation is to give other people the chance. Get over yourself. You're not that important. See if the other people can do it. And by the way, one of the other things you say, if they make mistakes, so what? Like you just said, we all make mistakes, including ourselves. It can't be your way or the highway. Otherwise, you become a bottleneck. And then if you're a bottleneck in your business where every decision has to flow through you, you're really not going to grow or reach the potential that everybody in the room could potentially have. Isn't that the message?
Yeah, I mean, we're so afraid of failure and of them messing up, and the reality is, first of all, you will make mistakes anyway, and second of all, they also will make mistakes, but they'll learn from those mistakes. And if you can build trust with them, your leaders, and build a team and then they can in success build a team. That's how you grow. That's how you grow over time, and you cannot build. No one can build $1 billion company on their own. No one can create a business that gives you the freedom to spend all the time with your children that you want without other people. So whatever your goals are, whether it's $1 billion company or time and freedom, you have to be able to trust others to learn and grow on the job, to make mistakes on the job, and to eventually help you grow. And here's the thing. We're so afraid that they're going to screw up. There's a decent chance that they're going to do better than you would have done. There is, right? Again, it's the ego. We think we're the best, but why? We're not the best.
That's what you want. That was the trouble with Trump. He was a one-man show with a one-man spotlight. He didn't want anybody to take any credit for anything. There's just this rapacious insecurity. But the smart people, Reagan had a great plaque in the Oval Office, right on the desk in the Oval Office, that said you can get anywhere you want in life as long as you don't care who gets the credit. Okay, so the super secure people are the ones that are able to delegate the most. All right, we're down to the 5 words. I have a podcast becoming a little famous now, Kirpin. Okay, I mean we're getting a lot of followers and viewers. I call it the famous 5 words. I'm going to give you 5 words. You give me your quick reaction. It could be a word, a sentence, something that comes to mind. You ready?
Let's do it.
Freedom.
Autonomy. Having the ability to do things the right way in your own time and space.
Mindset.
Power. The right mindset, the right mindset of positivity gives us the ultimate power.
Right, and ultimately, what did the Stoics say? We have pain and pleasure in our life. When you're going through the pain, learn to deal with it, adjust your brain to accept it. Excuse me, deal with the world the way it is, not with the way you want it to be, right? Isn't that ultimately what creates the best mindset?
I mentioned Shirzad Shamin in Positive Intelligence earlier. He writes in his book, he interviewed Christopher Reeve. And Christopher Reeve said the best thing that ever happened to him was getting paralyzed. Can you imagine that? We all think that's the worst thing that could possibly happen to you. He said it was the best thing. Why? Because it gave his life tremendous meaning. He spent the rest of his life advocating and changing the world with respect to people with disabilities. Imagine the ability to have that sort of mindset of positivity and perspective. And if Christopher Reeve can feel that, then we can all be a little bit less upset over the hour and 45 minutes of traffic that we had, and really channel positive thinking and work that mindset.
I wasn't really that upset. You're making a big deal of it. I just apologized for being late for the podcast. Now you're making me feel bad. Look at you.
No, don't feel bad.
The Jewish guy. I mean, it's like having my mother on a phone.
I know the guilt.
The guilt is overwhelming. You don't have to display the Italian Jewish neuroses to all of our
Jews and Italians are basically the same.
There's no question. Although we got you on the food.
You have us on the food, but we keep feeding people. It's just bad food.
Yeah, we have you on the food, but you guys could possibly have us on the guilt. All right, the third word, life.
Beautiful. Life is Beautiful is a great movie, and life is that's the only way to see life is life is beautiful. It's such a gift.
What about success?
Success is in our heads. Success is how we define it. And I used to define it based on the number of zeros I would have at the in the bank account, and that's such a false premise. There's no correlation between folks. You need some money to get by, and certainly in some areas of the world, like Long Island, you need a little bit more. But globally, after $75,000 a year, there is zero correlation between money, income, and happiness. Zero. So we think of many people think of success on the financial terms, and I just don't anymore. I think of success in terms of happiness and fulfillment with my family. And the money comes, and it's beautiful, and it's easy. And yes, it's easy to say that when you have financial success. But for me, success is really, it's about the fulfillment and the happiness with the things that I care about. So for me, that's my family.
Delegation.
Opportunity. It's an opportunity, and it holds so many people back, but delegation creates so much opportunity for personal growth and for business growth. It's like to me the big secret that I wish more people had access to. I hope more people, whether they read the book or not, that they could take a chance on delegation.
Listen, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because we all need these lessons. We all need to reinforce these lessons. And delegation is also a good sign of mentorship, because if you can delegate, you can train people to replace you. And the best leaders know that they are replaceable, and someday someone's going to have to do their job. And so why not delegate and give the person that opportunity? And I think that's a big resonating message. The title of the book is Get Over Yourself: How to Lead and Delegate Effectively for More Time, More Freedom, and More Success, from the legendary Dave Kirpin, fellow Long Islander. I would say go Vikings, but I can't say that anymore because I live in Manhasset. So I'm going to say go Indians, although they're changing the name of the Indians now because of Kathy Hochul. The local Indian tribe is upset about it, even though they're not Indians. I guess they're Native Americans, but they don't really care. It's just this endless wokeness that we're dealing with, which hopefully will also resolve itself. But in the meantime, go out and buy Dave Kirpin's book, Get Over Yourself. Dave, thank you so much for joining us on Open Book today.
Thank you for having me. While of course I'm a big Vikings fan, and my kid's a Port Washington legend, I got to give the Legends a shout out. The one good thing that Manhasset does have going for you guys is the orange. You do have the orange color, so that's good.
You like that?
I love that.
All right. Well, God bless you.
what is wealth? To me, wealth is health. Does money convey some sense of security? Of course it does. Just seeking money for money is not the answer. So you have to understand what's important to you about money. What are your prospects for generating money? What kind of time preferences have you selected? Do you want to save more or spend more? Have you thought through that? So you have to think through that. And the reality is, and you know this very well, that if you start early, you don't have to put a lot of money aside to have a whole bunch of money in 30 or 40 or 50 years. And you don't have to be a hedge fund manager to make a lot of money. You can do it just by investing in the market.
I haven't met Warren Buffett many times, but he said something to me about 20 years ago that has rung true in my life and has rung true in investing for me. Sometimes the best thing to do is absolutely nothing. We have all of these impulses in our personalities where, well, I'm getting paid this big fee, and so let me go out and do something for my clients as a result of this fee. Okay, so joining us now on Open Book is Andrew Perillo. He's a dear friend, institutional investor. He's an author and speaker, and he's out with a new book, Beat the Wealth Management Hustle. Invest independently to grow savings faster with peace of mind. So, wow, that's a mouthful because you and I have been in wealth management. I think you and I are like Donald Trump and Joe Biden of wealth management. We're two ancient fossils in the industry. And there's a lot of things that are great about the industry, a lot of things not so great about the industry. You've written beautifully about all of this stuff. But let's start, Andrew, with your career. Tell us about your background, how you got started, why you've been doing this for so long.
Okay, great. Thanks. First of all, thanks for having me on. This is really an honor to be with such an august host here. I appreciate it.
August, yeah, emphasis
also,
on the word august.
Icon of inspiration, especially with your partner Katie, or Caddy, I should say. But anyway, okay, how did I get started? Well, look, I went to Boston University. I'm from Rhode Island. Went to Boston University. Did my military obligation, Air Force navigator. Got out. Went to a bank training program. They put me in the investment department back in the early '70s because I'm really ancient. You're just a child. But and then I just kind of in those days, investing was not a really popular career. So I didn't know any better. I didn't know anything about stocks or bonds. I learned, and I guess I learned well enough because then I was attracted to eventually at the age of 31. Managed the largest department or pension investment department of the largest bank in Rhode Island, which ultimately became part of Bank of America. And then in the early 80s, I went to an independent firm in Boston. And I had trouble with the ethics of that business. I then switched to having managed money and having met with investors and fiduciaries, always fiduciaries, and rarely individuals. Although I did have some of the larger individual clients of the bank as clients, but it was an interesting time. I mean, in the early '70s, interest rates went crazy. Interest rates by '81 were almost 16% on 20-year treasuries. And they went down to 55 basis points in August of 20. So we had the biggest bull market in history. Actually, not as big as the bull market in bonds in Japan before that. But anyway, market history is fun for me. It's a big part of my life. I enjoy the competition. Anyway, in '95, I found myself in a position where I really thought I could do a better job for clients on my own. So I started my own firm. And the name of the firm was Newport Capital Advisors, and I had endowment clients. They were referrals. I was charmed in my life. I never had to go out soliciting business. People came to me. They knew who I was. They liked me, and so they trusted me, and they hired me. And why did they do that? Well, I can only attribute it to, and I talk about this in the book, I thought independently. I was different from the crowd. I wasn't on the well-worn institutional path of hiring the big famous, firms. I was like, no, let me find the people who are poor, driven, and hungry, kind of a Mario Gavelli thing. Although I never actually engaged Mario's firm, but anyway, another story. But we probably know a lot of the same people. We've had the same experiences. But the bottom line of this all is, by the end of 2019, after 25 years of owning my own firm, and we had endowment clients and family offices as clients, and I had a small hedge fund of funds, a multi-strategy fund, and which was interesting and a learning experience. And after by the end of 19, I was getting a little tired of it, and I closed the firm, and I tried retirement for a couple of years, and I got super bored. And in late 22, I was at a party, a holiday party, and I didn't know anybody there. It was a friend of mine's house in New Hampshire, actually, and I introduced myself, and I said, "Well, I have three sons, three grandchildren. I retired from the investment business." And in December of 22, you may recall, I'm sure you do, that the market was down roughly 20% that year, and bonds were also down, depending on your duration, 15% or more. People were a little bit concerned. What should I do with my portfolio? So, thank you for asking. I said, but I'm not an advisor anymore. And do you have an advisor? Yeah, well, you probably should ask your advisor. I don't talk about investments casually in a social setting with people. But talk to your advisor. And then, well, what's the Fed going to do next week? Well, the Fed is probably going to do what it's been telling us since March of 22 that they're going to do, and that is raise interest rates until inflation begins to subside. But will it be enough of a change to change your portfolio strategy? I don't think so, but you should ask your advisor. All right. So that led me to an epiphany. It's like, wait a minute. Why are strangers asking somebody about what to do with their money? Don't they have advisors? Don't they talk to their advisors? And I started asking friends, who had advisors? Yeah, we have. Do you know how much you pay your advisor? Nope. And this was like a dozen people. They didn't know what they were paying their advisor. So, okay. And so that was my epiphany. And that was that's what really caused me to start to write the book. And what basically happens in the world in so-called wealth management, which is a term that I think is specious and pretentious, frankly, but it's investment management. But anyway, let's face it, people, according to Daniel Kahneman, the late Daniel Kahneman, and he won a Nobel Prize in economics as a psychologist in 2002, and wrote a book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, which I commend to everybody. And it's people are 2.5 times more likely to avoid risk than to embrace the opportunity for gain. And Wall Street, I shouldn't say Wall Street, the so-called wealth management industry has done an expert job of exploiting that phenomenon or that tendency for people to avoid risk. And people go to wealth managers for comfort. They rarely ask them, how much they charge. I think they have no idea of what compound interest is, And here are the numbers, Anthony. And there are no charts and graphs in my book. There are some numbers. The numbers are pretty. And my book is a simple book. It's a simple idea. Okay, there's nothing complicated about it. But we know that in the last 25 years, the world has changed so that accessibility of information, competition has increased. Prices in many cases have gone down a lot, especially driven by technology. And that's been true in the investment business, where now you can invest for little or no cost, really, and you can have a prudent portfolio with using the services of the major, custodial brokerage firms and banks, for little or no cost. And so, why are you paying somebody to do that? Because they don't think they're paying very much. Well, they know how much they pay their lawyer to put together a will and a trust and other agreements they need for their business or their family planning. They know how much they pay their CPA, but they don't have a clue about how much they're paying their advisors. And that's just a fact. And it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry that's charging hundreds of billions of dollars a year in fees. And most people have no idea whether they're getting value from the fees that they pay. And that's as simple as I can put it. And so my book is about, disclosure, transparency. It has some questions. It advocates to people that they look at their investment process the way institutions look at investing their own money. And that is to conduct, due diligence. It's not rocket science. It's common sense questions. And, I'm not that smart. I just have been around for a while and I've seen stuff. And, you can't time the market.
Let's go over some mistakes. So that's one of them. You can't time the market. Number two, if you overly listen to people on the pundits, you may move your portfolio pursuant to Federal Reserve interest rates move, that's also probably not a good idea. Fees matter, right? Lower fees, higher returns over long periods of time. Tell us some other mistakes that people make. So let's say you did run into somebody at one of these cocktail parties and you said, okay, here are 5 or 6 things you should do with your money, which will be better for you and your family. Tell us what those are.
Well, 5 or 6 things is to first of all understand what is important to you about money. That's the first thing. It's really like at a value-based, query. What's important to you about money? One of the things I talk about in the book, firstly, is what is wealth? Well, to me, wealth is health. And so does money convey some sense of security? Of course it does. But just seeking money for money is not the answer. So you have to understand what's important to you about money. Do you, can you, and then what are your prospects for generating money? What kind of time preferences have you selected? Do you want to save more or spend more? Have you thought through that? So you have to think through that. Time preference for money is super important. And the reality is, and you know this very well, that if you start early, you don't have to put a lot of money aside to have a whole bunch of money in 30 or 40 or 50 years. And you don't have to be, a hedge fund manager to make a lot of money. You can do it just by investing in the market.
When you were a kid, Andrew, did you ever read The Richest Man in Babylon?
I have not, unfortunately. I'm not as well read as you, Anthony. No.
Yeah, because your book is a lot like that. That's the reason why I was asking, because your book is it's a very, very straightforward thing. I've ordered a bunch of them, and I'm trying to get them into as many hands as possible, because I just think it's a beautiful guidepost. But I'm gonna bring you on the Wealthion Network, which is another show that I do called Speak Up, where registered investment advisors actually tune into this show. And so if you were a registered investment advisor and they read your book, and a lot of people are cynical about wealth management and a lot of the stuff you say in the book is true, but put me in the seat of the registered investment advisor. How do I make myself valuable to somebody after reading your book?
Yeah. Okay. Here's my approach. My approach, and this is what I used at my firm. First of all, behavioral finance is really a big deal. Okay, because human behavior changes over time, but the pattern is roughly similar. Okay, and so the reaction to market events, which are, sometimes, surprising and chaotic, tend to follow a path. I mean, the reality is that let's just talk about the standard of corporate performance for 100 years has been the Standard & Poor's 500, okay? And it's gone up roughly 10% a year. 3 years during the Depression, the Great Depression, it was down 85%. It was down 50% for the 2.5 years of dot-com decline. It was down a year and a half. It was down 50% for a year and a half during the Great Financial Crisis. It was down 35% in 30 days in the COVID crisis, okay? But it's always come back. Why has it come back? It's because corporate managements are incented to provide a return to their shareholders, and if they do not, they're out of business, and people will go on to the next, company. And I don't expect that to change. And yes, inflation rates have changed. The value of the dollar has been destroyed particularly since we suspended convertibility of gold in 1971. And I'm not a gold bug. I never thought that gold was a good investment. But anyway, however, I do think Bitcoin is a different proposition. It is a good investment, but that's a different, level of thing. What would I tell advisors? I would tell advisors, focus on allowing the client to determine his or her own preference for risk and return. And I use something that's based on prospect theory, which is an objective way to determine somebody's tolerance for risk and return. So it asks a series of iterative questions. And the questions are, okay, how do you feel about possibly making, and this again is using what we know as mean variance analysis, but it's basically using history as a guide to what may happen in the future in the market, which has been pretty reliable. So looking over a 6-month interval, would you be comfortable making 20 or losing 12? well, I don't want to lose 12%, but how about making 15 and losing maybe 8? Well, that sounds a little better. And so you could actually quantify those preferences with a risk score. And for what it's worth, the Standard & Poor's 500 has a risk score of about 75 on a scale of 0 to 99. And and most people have a lot more risk in their lives and in their portfolios than they even know. So one of the things you could do as an advisor is say, let's take a look at your portfolio and see how it scores and see if it comports with your own preference for risk and return by using that score that we've just determined iteratively and objectively. So it's not like, well, you're a 60-year-old man, Anthony, so you must be relatively conservative in your investing. Well, the reality is that no, surveys have shown that people who are under 30, half the people under 30 are just as conservative as half the people over 70. Okay. And that's just a fact. So it's a very subjective saying, well, I'm growth oriented, I'm risk oriented, I'm conservative, I'm capital preservation oriented. That doesn't mean anything. Those are subjective terms. And I think that they should be quantified objectively. And therefore you could review them and you could calibrate a portfolio to that risk score. And that's what I would suggest that advisors do. The other thing I would suggest that advisors do is be very transparent on how much they have charged their clients over what interval from beginning to end. One of the things that happens in our business is every minute you get throughout the day, you'll get a notice on your mobile device that you have a charge against your card or your bank account or something, right? You get those notices. Do you get a notice every quarter when your advisor charges you their management fee? No. The fee comes out of the custody account. People don't even see it. They don't read the custody accounts anyway, until and unless the market goes down a lot and they get freaked out. And where do the advisors make their money? They make their money by setting the appropriate strategy and risk profile for each client, and then revisiting that on a systematic basis, probably at least a couple of times a year, but at least annually. And so that's what I would tell advisors to do. And I would also encourage advisors to charge their fees on a fair basis. Now, you and I both know that the margins in the investment management business are really high. What a great business. You get a client that has recurring fees. They're going to grow in line with the market, which again is roughly 10% a year. Call it 8%, call it 7%, still doubles in 10 years. And so you have this stream of revenue that's growing at 7% a year. It's a value because it has a residual value, because you could put a number on that and sell it to somebody, to a larger firm that wants to buy your book of business, so-called. And it's a great business. And oh, by the way, it takes almost zero capital to be in the business. Right? It's probably one of the most attractive businesses I can think of that's legal. And the only reason it's legal is because the SEC is so permissive. And people don't even know that fees by the SEC's mandate are negotiable. That doesn't mean the manager is going to lower the fees, but all management fees are negotiable. And people don't even know that. So it's trying to just enlighten people to look. I said before I have some numbers, and I know we don't have a lot of time left, but okay. So let's say you have $500,000 and you have an advisor who makes 7% a year for 20 years, and they charge you 1% a year, which is generally the management fee that people charge. It might be a little less. It might even be more. It frequently is. All right. So how much does that amount to? Well, that fee, that 1% over 20 years, amounts to $331,000. So if you want to put your $500,000 out there to an advisor at 1%, and you don't mind paying them $331,000 over 20 years, great. That's your choice. But you should go into that with your eyes open. Could you do that yourself for almost no fee, for a few basis points, for a few 1/100ths of 1%? The answer is yes. So all I'm saying is what Warren Buffett and the late Jack Bogle have said for years, and that is, just invest in the S&P 500 and forget about it. And just you cannot deal with the noise of Wall Street on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, because it will drive you bananas. Yeah. Right? You won't know what to do. And, you'll hear these talking heads. And that's another thing I talk about in the book, but there's not time to go into it here. But the people who get interviewed on the daily financial shows are talking about what's going to happen next week in the market. I don't know. And I know there are a few people who can actually time the market,
Yeah.
but it's
Well,
probably
it's definitely not me, Andrew. I can tell you that.
no, not you. But I'm saying there are some people who are good at that. But you could count them on maybe two hands. All right, and they're not accessible. They're
Yeah.
closed to. They're brilliant investors.
Yeah.
Absolutely, they're savants. Really, is what they are. But
I'm going to say something to you, and I want you to react to it.
yeah,
I feel I get paid as an investment advisor or as a manager to do nothing. And you say, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean to do nothing? Well, I have set up a portfolio. And if I can condition my clients to listen to me and take the long term approach with the portfolio that I have set up, I haven't met Warren Buffett many times, but he said something to me about 20 years ago that has rung true in my life and has rung true in investing for me. Sometimes the best thing to do is absolutely nothing. And we have all of these impulses in our personalities where, well, I'm getting paid this big fee, and so let me go out and do something for my clients as a result of this fee. And so what's your reaction to that? Because I really think that's when I talk to my clients, are like, where you've added value, Anthony, you've kept me on the ledge. You kept me from jumping off the ledge, going to cash at the worst possible times, etc.
And that is precisely the right way to look at it. And that's exactly the right. And look, I've been through a lot of crashes. I've been around this industry for 50 years. I know and I've been through it with real people. And I've seen how difficult it is. It's terrifying when you lose 50% of the value of your money or more. But in every case, it's come back. And of course, the advice has been, yes, stay with the program. Do not sell at the bottom. Do not try to reduce risk, because what you're really doing, if you sell out after you lose, you're not reducing risk. You're actually increasing the risk that you will not succeed. And so, that advice about doing nothing is exactly the right advice. My point is, why are you paying somebody an annual asset-based fee, and you're paying them every day of the year, that fee, by the way, to tell you every time the market goes down, 10 or 15 or 20% or more, to just stay the course, stay put. Maybe we'll rebalance a little bit. But, does your advisor make changes on a daily basis to your portfolio? No. And if they do, they're probably not very tax efficient, or for that matter, investment efficient. It's just not necessary to do that. Warren Buffett's favorite holding period is forever. And that's good advice. Now, if you hold on to something that's fundamentally deteriorating, that's kind of dumb. You can't do that. But if you've spread your risk among, say an index of stocks like the broad index that Vanguard has, or the S&P 500, yeah, you're going to get the decisions of and oh, by the way, many investment managers, and you know this as well as I do, have gotten rich underperforming the S&P 500. I mean, they literally have gotten. Why is that? Are they making money for themselves, or are they making money for their clients? So I think
listen, I'm with you. That's why I wanted to bring you on. So we're at the point in the podcast where my staff and we put together 5 words that are tied to your book. And so I'm going to say the word, and then you're going to say to me what you think of. It could be a sentence, it could be a word, it could be a few thoughts. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
When I say the word money, Andrew, you think of what?
I think of confusion.
Okay, it's interesting. It's a good point. How about the word success?
Achievement.
How about when I say hustle?
Let's see. Resolute energy.
Wealth.
Health.
Boy, isn't that the truth? When we're kids, we don't think of it that way, right? But what do we think about that as we get older? That it's really just the health is the wealth. Last word, investing.
Joy.
Well, it has been. It's been for me too. I mean, this has been the best business I could have gone into. Is this business? It's just the business of understanding other businesses. If you like business, what could be better than that? Who's going to win the election?
Question, Whitmer.
You think so? All right. So they
Anthony, listen, what's going on?
if they replace Biden, say it again. Say it.
Yeah, most of the people in the country do not want either Biden or Trump to be running for president.
Right.
This is the most
That's true.
absurd situation that I can imagine. Okay,
That's true.
that I could have even dreamt of. Okay,
It's very
in
true.
this country right now. And poor Joe Biden. I feel so bad for the guy. He's been a terrific president. He's had an unprecedented, successful term as president.
He's been a better president than Obama. He was less dramatic, less. Obama was no drama. Obama, that wasn't the case, though.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the man has been one of the most successful presidents in history. Unfortunately, his cognitive abilities have declined, and they've hidden that from us until 3 weeks ago when we saw it on display, and it's gotten worse since then. And yeah, I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. It's painful to listen to the poor man. I hope he steps aside with grace and dignity. There's still time for him to do that, although it is getting late for him to do it with dignity and grace. The country needs to be reinvigorated with two candidates or at least one candidate that has not been around for 9 years or more. Okay, Biden's been around 50 years. The other guy's been around 9 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting kind of old. And what can I say? I mean, I could go on and on, but I listen to you. I'm totally on board with what you've been saying on your broadcasts, and both on investments and on politics, frankly. And I think, again, I think you're an inspiration. You're an icon of your generation, and you deserve a hell of a lot more visibility than I think you're getting.
Well, it's very sweet of you. I appreciate it. I'm a huge fan. I'm going to bring you on the Wealthy On show as well. I think you're going to really enjoy that.
Thank you.
We take questions from the audience. So the title of the book is Beat the Wealth Management Hustle. Invest independently to grow savings faster with peace of mind. I was very proud to write the foreword to this book. It's written by Andrew Perillo. Thank you so much for joining us today on Open Book.
Thanks, Anthony. Take care.
My next guest is a fellow Italian American. His name is Andrew Perillo, and he's a wealth manager. And he started out as a stockbroker, but now he's sort of an asset allocator. Okay. Which I've been for the last 30 years, Ma, but for some reason you wanted to be a lawyer, right?
Well, in my generation, a lawyer was like a status symbol, like in society.
Mm-hmm.
Today, it's more common. What you are is even better because you're very successful because you like doing what you're doing. But not only that, you share your wealth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you definitely have made me survive. I mean, let's say it's the way it is.
But let me ask you this question, though, Ma. Did you tell your friends that Goldman Sachs was a law firm? Yes or no?
Not really, but
you know you did.
You
did.
No,
you did. You're revising history. Oh, did you tell them I was a lawyer at Goldman Sachs? Go ahead. You know you did because I ran into somebody at Rosano's Deli, and you see, you know you did, and you said, "Oh, my son's a lawyer," and they said, "How's the law firm Goldman and Sachs?" I'm like, "Oh my God!" First of all, it wasn't even called that. You trying to deny that you did that to me?
Well, it was many years ago, and I'm going to be 88, so I'm not.
So you get away with it. It's okay. No. You can get away with it. It's all good. I thought it was funny, but you made me take the bar exam. Do you remember that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go to Harvard Law and not pass the bar and not become a lawyer, have a law degree.
Right, so I did that for you, Mom.
Use it or not use it.
You drove me
crazy. Thing to have.
Never used it once. You drove me crazy. I went and passed the exam so you could come to the swearing in ceremony. But if I was a lawyer, I would have stabbed out one of my eyeballs with a butter knife. Come on, Mom. Right? Don't you think you should do what you love?
I think you should do what you love to do. Yes, because that's why you're successful at it. You love it. You love the challenge you love the challenge, and you love the camaraderie of the whole atmosphere of what you're in. You're very good at it, and your success and your abilities to build beautiful homes take care of your
Nothing
family
like a all right, Ma. All right, nothing like a mom to bring around the podcast. Okay,